Right. Good evening, everyone. Thank you all for being here. I'm going to call this regular meeting of the Los Gatos Town Council to order. Town Clerk, can we have a roll?
Councilmember Rennie?
Here.
Councilmember Hudis?
Here.
Councilmember Badami?
I'm here.
Vice Mayor Risto?
Here.
Mayor Moore?
Here. Okay, great. So first, happy St. Patrick's Day, everyone. Good to see so many folks in the room. My apologies for the heat. We are, really trying to come into the spring season and get us all acclimated to the good summer weather that is to come. We're working on it, but it might be a little bit warm this evening, so apologies for that. We're going to start with 3 presentations, and we'll start with our small business recognition for Lisa Myers of the Los Gatos Birdwatcher. You can come forward. Oh, I'm sorry. Do we have... We'll do the pledge after. We do the pledge first? Okay, we'll do the Pledge of Allegiance first to kick off our meeting. All right.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you very much. All right. Exactly. All right. So Lisa Myers, you can now come on down. All right. So Los Gatos' small business of the month for the month of March is the Los Gatos Birdwatcher. Lisa Myers is the owner. If you all have never been to the Los Gatos Birdwatcher, I highly, highly recommend it. You do not have to be a birder to go, although you may leave being one. I'm a regular shopper at the Los Gatos Birdwatcher, and I'll read a few things about why I wanted to celebrate and recognize Lisa and the Birdwatcher, and then you can say a few things. So congratulations to Lisa Myers and the entire Los Gatos Birdwatcher team on being named Los Gatos' Business of the Month. This recognition is a testament to the care, passion, and community spirit you bring to Los Gatos every day. And I mean this, your store is a true hub for connection. When you go in there, you will meet people who are so passionate about birding and many things. Through birding walks, workshops, events, you bring neighbors together, foster a deeper appreciation for nature, and help build a strong sense of community around a shared love of birds. Moreover, your commitment to bird conservation and environmental stewardship is helping protect the natural beauty and creatures that make Los Gatos so special. We are very fortunate to have the Los Gatos Birdwatcher as a vibrant, local, and welcoming presence in our town. Thank you very much. Okay. Do you want to say a few words?
I'll say a few words.
Okay, all right.
And maybe, can you get... Thank you, Rob and Los Gatos. And yes, we just celebrated 30 years in Los Gatos. What a wonderful community to be a part of. And we do want to be the hub for anything nature. We'll talk about butterflies and bees and all that kind of stuff. So please, if you've never stopped by, come on in, and we'd love to meet you. And I thank you all.
Thank you. We'll take a quick picture. Thank you and congratulations. All right, and now we will recognize our resident of the month. Lauren Surratt, will you please come forward? Yes, please. So some of you all might not know who Lauren is, but you have likely recently heard of her art. So Lauren is the creator of Scrappy, which is, in the words of the Los Gatos newspaper, the new unofficial monument of the town. And so I'll read a few things and then have you say a few words. So congratulations on being named Los Gatos' Resident of the Month. This recognition reflects the creativity, joy, and community spirit you've brought to town. Scrappy, the the trash Gato, which I think is so cute, is a truly unique piece of art that blends creativity with an important message about sustainability and mindful consumption. By transforming discarded materials into something meaningful, you've created a community monument that both inspires and makes people smile. Equally special is the way you involved friends, family, and neighbors, many of whom are here this evening, which I think is a testament to the how much you've brought people together to bring Scrappy to life. Thank you for using your creativity to bring your neighbors and loved ones together and add something very special to Los Gatos. And so for you, those of you that are now very interested in seeing Scrappy, who have not seen Scrappy yet, it's on Blossom Hill Road near the intersection of Union. Though don't try to stop, you just have to drive by. But Lauren, I'll let you say a few words about Scrappy and your creation.
Thank you. I feel so privileged. I'm lucky that my in-laws, Tom and Hamel, my parents, Bob and Crystal, and my husband, Steve, are here and so supportive. Otherwise, being a parent, it would have been very challenging to make Scrappy. I used plastic because it's just such an accessible material. We all have plastic packaging. It's not hard to come by. And one thing that I remember when I was going through my teaching credential program is my supervisor said, make sure to bring the magic. And so I feel really lucky to be able to do that with my children. And now hearing that people enjoy seeing Scrappy and are trash, that it's really motivating to keep adding to him. And I'm really excited for what's next for him after St. Patrick's Day. So thank you so much.
Absolutely, we can't wait to see it. So. Congratulations. Congratulations. Well deserved. All right. Okay, and now we have one more fun and important one. Will the folks from the American Red Cross please come forward? This month we are proclaiming March to be American Red Cross Month to recognize the compassion of the people in the town of Los Gatos and affirm our commitment to care for one each another in times of crisis. And so we recognize the American Red Cross every year. I think it's a very important proclamation that the town of Los Gatos makes. We hope to never have much interaction with the Red Cross, but when we do, it's incredibly important. I actually just met with a Red Cross volunteer who was sharing that a few weeks ago, the Red Cross was activated twice in about a 48 or 72-hour period due to a large apartment fire and then another small disaster, which led to the Red Cross activating multiple shelters to bring people in. And so the Red Cross has set up a variety of connections here in town with organizations that can, like the JCC and the town of Los Gatos here, who can support in the event of a disaster. And so it's an incredibly important resource, and we're very, very grateful to you all for the work that you do. So you want to share a little bit about your work?
Yeah, thank you very much. Grab that. I'm Mark Ebner. I'm a board member here at the Silicon Valley chapter of American Red Cross. I'm here with your very own Jim Yokes, who's one of our wonderful volunteer community leaders. So thank you very much for this. This tradition started over 80 years ago, and by these proclamations really thank the volunteers that lead and power our mission. And actually 90% of the work that American Red Cross is done by volunteers. These folks that volunteer help out with disaster relief, supporting military families, and giving blood. So speaking of activations and other things, in Santa Clara Valley alone this last year, there's over 100 different disasters that occurred inside of our space. We had helped over 1,700 military families, and this community gave over 18,000 blood donations. And there are 2,100 volunteers across
Santa Clara County, but there's over 100 volunteers from the town of Los Gatos, and 2 board members and 2 staff folks that help us out. So we love the support. We love what we do. And, thank you, Mayor, to the council, to the town of Los Gatos, as well as all of its staff, for partnering with us to be ready for anything that does come.
Thank you very much. And if someone wants to get involved with the Red Cross, how do they do that?
Yeah, we would love that support. There's always need for more hands. You can easily go to AmericanRedCross.org/volunteer today. Really easy. Sign up. There's training and everything, so you don't need to know how to do anything. It's training, and it's really a heart and a helping hand.
Well, thank you. And you're going to take a quick picture. Very much. Thank you for being here. Congratulations, and thank you to all of everyone who's been recognized here this evening. Thank you. All right. Now to the business of the Los Gatos Town Council meeting. So first, I just want to provide a little bit of clarification on public comment this evening. I know there's a variety of folks here to comment on a few different things. So just to clarify, if anyone is here who would like to speak on an item on the agenda or under verbal, please make sure you read a comment card. If you want to speak on consent, you'll be doing that now. Then if you want to speak on anything that's not on the agenda or on council matters, that is next. So that's during public communications, the beginning part of the meeting. And then we have one item 8 this evening, that we'll accept separate public comments on. I hope that's clear, and I'll sort through your comment cards as they come in. So we'll move to consent. Are there any members of the council that would like to pull an item from consent? Okay, seeing none, I will go to public comment for consent, and I have 2 comment cards for consent. The first is from Gus Hu, the second, Lee Quintana.
Okay, I wanted to start off because I did fill out a card, and I filled it out, Rob, with one O. So because I wanted to present these flowers to Wonder Woman, because it's on the minutes on the thing. She was singled out, and this person here, I don't know if there's a picture of him. It says Chief Fields, and unfortunately she was not here. Hopefully somebody can, she did some wonderful things that should have been on the minutes. And I want to point some of those things out. I strongly believe that you have my thing. There's enough people here that spoke on ICE. There were 22 of them, or around 20 of them the other day. And now they're lined up. I don't know if you're supposed to have cards like that, but and then it's in the things. Also, I think you have to speak on DEI support. I support that, but they're only inviting people from just the locals when it should be a community thing.
Yes.
It sounds like that comment might be related to agenda item number.
Is that A? It says.
This is consent. So this is items
So
2
you
through
had to
7.
speak on DEI, it was the A?
That's under verbal communications.
Oh, okay, sorry. I thought that
Or
was,
I think it's an agenda item. I think it's labeled
Yeah.
A at
Yeah.
toward the end of the agenda.
but they said to speak on it I thought you could speak on it this.
To speak on
A.
to clarify, to
I
speak
just
on
wanted-
item A under
Okay.
council matters, you'll speak during verbal communications.
Yeah, then the biggest thing is I would wish that you would poll number 7 and correct, I said 2 and 7, because I think minutes are very important to, it doesn't take 4 hours or 6 hours for the lesson to figure out what we're trying to do. I'm the hardest person thinking. I support the ICE, but I'm supporting truth. And like I'm saying, hey, the soccer field doesn't cost $2.5 million for a new to surfaces. If you look it up online, it's $1 million. So the budget, there's a whole bunch of budget things. Another thing that I brought up that I would want to bring up, is all the stuff that I've been saying on the minutes. And, if it's even a sentence, it's better than nothing. Because, now I'm just a thing. I'm just a member of the public. If 2 people are members of the public, then it's just 1 member of the public, 2 people, because you don't have to speak under your name. You'd rather not, because you're pointing out certain things that the town's doing or people are doing, and you just want to, hey, a kid was up on a light pole, and I sent it in a picture or something like that. You find needles in a field, you don't want your name getting out there. So thanks.
Thank you. We have one other speaker for consent, which is Lee Quintana.
Good evening, Lee Quintana. I would just like some clarification. The motion, the resolution is that for all Brown Act meetings, the minutes will be action-only minutes unless for things like the town council study sessions or a planning commission study sessions or that type of thing from the council and the planning commission, that they have the choice of asking for something different. My question for clarification is that there are many other committees and commissions that don't make recommendations to the council or the planning commission, or they do that, but they also may have another function of just reviewing things, such as the Historic Preservation Committee when we do a preliminary review, or the Design Review Committee, which makes suggestions to applicants who come before it. So my clarification that I would like is this up to each committee to decide if they have that kind of function, that they can ask for more than just action minutes for items that aren't action?
Thank you. Town Attorney, do you mind jumping on that one?
I'll start, and then the town clerk will probably have more information. But I'll start by explaining what a legislative body is. And so the legislative body is the town council, the planning commission, or any board or commission that is created by formal action of the town council. And so that would include, I think an example was given of the Historic Preservation Committee, and so they would qualify as a Brown Act committee. And then, Wendy, would you mind describing the contents of the new policy?
Per the resolution, it does say that all meetings, so that would encompass the commission meetings as well.
Great.
And it does state Brown Act bodies.
Great. Thank you very much. Okay, with no other speaker cards, do we have any hands raised on Zoom for consent? No? Okay, then I'll entertain a motion on consent. Yes, Councilmember Badami.
I move to approve consent items 1 through 7.
Thank you. Yes, Councilmember Hudis.
Second.
Great. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? None. Passes unanimously. Great. So we will now move to verbal communications, which again, to clarify, is for members of the public wanting to speak on a matter not listed on the agenda or listed under council matters. That's item A. We'll begin with Jeff Suzuki. And Jeff Suzuki will be followed by Sue Ann Lorig.
Good evening, council members. First, I will disclose that I am not speaking as a Complete Streets and Transportation Commissioner, but as a private citizen, member of the public. I'd like to start off my public comment by saying that I have heard a lot about this handwriting the Constitution project that has been floated by, very strongly advocated for by Gordon Yamate, the chair of the DEI Commission. I would very strongly support this project because I think that it is important to be reminded of our constitutional rights, especially in this moment. I've personally taken part in the project just kind of independently. I discovered it when I was back in college, and I did it, and I thought it was a very useful exercise. And we live in a republic that has the world's oldest constitution. It kickstarted a long tradition of constitutionalism throughout the world, and it's important to understand the limitations of government, especially when we see the government committing large overreaches in its authority. The executive branch unilaterally declaring war, murdering U.S. citizens out in the streets, unless we were to believe their word that they are somehow domestic terrorists. Tear gassing elementary schools unless we believe that they somehow deserved it. And I don't think that in any sane world that is truly democratic, we would simply sit there in silence. We have held vigils in recognition of the victims of federal immigration enforcement since the start of February, and dozens. The biggest one was about 60 people on a Saturday morning at 10 a.m. And you saw a couple weeks ago, 20 people showed up with 1 day's notice to come and give their presence and their voice in several situations, that it's very important that our town government make their voices heard on this particular issue. And we will continue showing up until you do. We will not stop until we hear what you have to say about this issue. Thank you.
You will go to Sue Ann Lorig, who will be followed by Nigel Chandler.
Hi, Council. I'm Sue Ann Lorig, a resident of Los Gatos. You heard me speak 2 weeks ago on this issue, so I won't go into a long speech again. I just want to reiterate that along with Jeff, I want the town council very strongly to take a position and make a resolution to not cooperate with ICE, to not allow them to stage on ICE on town property, and to follow the Constitution and to support the rights and respect the rights of the people that live here, the residents of Los Gatos. Thank you.
Thank you. And we'll go to Nigel Chandler, who will be followed by Lee Quintana.
Hello, Council. My name is Nigel Chandler. Again, today I'm not speaking in my capacity as Complete Streets and Transportation Commissioner, but as a resident of Los Gatos. Once again, I am here with my fellow townspeople to ask that the Town Council officially consider the topic of ICE and immigration enforcement at the next Town Council meeting, or whenever it ends up being brought forth on the agenda. We know that towns in our nearby area continue to make strides to protect the rights of their people, and now is the time to act, I believe. Amidst all the chaos we see with the wars, embargoes, kidnapping and murders of heads of state, the bombings of elementary schools abroad, the state of the world is a little unhinged. You probably know, right? I'm not asking you to solve all that as council. I'm not asking you to solve any wars or to stop war crimes. But you can certainly act in the ways that you can. You can certainly follow the precedent of our other towns in this area, and you should. We must stand united with our region, or divided we shall fall. Thank you.
Thank you. We will go to Lee Quintana, who will be followed by Lee Fago.
I want to speak on several things during this. I support the writing project, number one. Number two, last week there were many eloquent speakers asking the council to consider a resolution regarding ICE. I support that, but I did not speak. Those speakers were far more eloquent than I can be. But I do want to state one thing, and that's that many years ago, a previous planning commissioner, and by the way, I'm speaking for myself, not as a member of the Historic Preservation Committee, which I always forget to say, a previous planning commissioner and city council member once advised me that when I spoke, I shouldn't deal so much with facts that doesn't get across, but that I should have some emotion and feeling in what I'm saying, and that's what I want to do today. I think this, while Los Gatos doesn't want to get involved in things that aren't local issues, I think this is very much a local issue, and it's a very personal one for me, in that my husband is Hispanic, and recently both my sister and my son advised us that when he leaves home, he should carry his passport. That's chilling to me. It's especially ironic, I think, because I am a firstborn American citizen. My parents were born in Russia. My husband, on the other hand, is Hispanic, but his family has been in the United States for long before it was the United States, coming through with the conquistadors as they went through Mexico into New Mexico, where his family settled. So he's been here for generations and generations and generations, and yet we have to think about his safety when he goes out, especially because he tends to be sort of gruffy. But that shouldn't be a factor. And so I'm asking you, from a personal standpoint, to please consider this.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Lee Fago, who will be followed by Karen Yamamoto.
Good evening. Lee Fago, I'm speaking as a 30-year-plus resident of Los Gatos, not representing any group. And I just want to endorse the concept of the proposal by the mayor to place a Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Commission recommendation regarding the proposed handwriting the Constitution project, and that should be brought forward as quickly as possible because the need is very much there. This document, the Constitution, it's a document of guidance, and it is inclusive of laws and accountability. And it was developed and written by several founding fathers. We hear of the founding fathers, but also the founding mothers were very much involved. And they collaborated and they worked together. And even though many of the founding families were not in alignment, Jefferson and Adams couldn't agree on if it was raining outside, but they came together to put this document together and help write the document in a way that has sustained our country for almost 250 years. So please, let's move forward with that project and have the council endorse it and have it being written in different sections of our community by residents. And it'll be a learning project for many generations to participate in that project. And it should be displayed in several places, including in this chamber. So thank you.
Thank you. We'll now go to Karen Yamamoto, who will be followed by Gregory Gentile.
Hi, I'm Karen Yamamoto. Sorry. He's a little taller than I am. love going right behind Lee because he's always taller and I'm shorter anyhow. I'm here to support item A. Our U.S. Constitution is 250 years old and is the oldest and longest running constitution in the world. No other country has a strong constitution that has not been changed in 250 years. That's amazing. And we should feel honored and just privileged to be able to celebrate this year. And I do love the idea that people get together and get to handwrite it. It shows that, one, the Constitution is important. Two, it illustrates to our children that writing is important. Words have meaning. It gives us purpose, it gives us knowledge, and it tells us who we are and what we're made of. I love this idea. I love the importance. I love the significance. And I do believe this will make an impact on our little town of Los Gatos. And it will be remembered and cherished for every Los Gatosan. Thank you.
Go to Greg and then Gordon Yamate.
Good evening, council members. My name is Gregory Gentile, and I'm a 30-plus year resident of the town of Los Gatos. I'm presently serving on the Community Health Senior Services Commission and have been appointed as a liaison to the DEI. But tonight I'm speaking on behalf of myself as a private citizen. I applaud this Constitution writing project that Mr. Yamate brought to the attention of the Commission and then to the Town Council. It is, to me, a very worthwhile project. It truly reflects a project that I believe will unite the community in celebrating our unique history. While we may be a country of divergent cultures, we remain as one people and share the bond of a unique document which celebrates our country's founding and created our country's institutions. As a history major and a now retired lawyer, I always had appreciation of the documents that formed our country and guided the founding fathers in creating the republic. I was excited, ecstatic actually, when Mr. Yamate brought this to our attention, that this was a project that we were thinking of pursuing, and I think it would be good for the town. The project, as far as I'm concerned, will provide a way for us to learn more about the country's or our country's unique history, and will create a useful dialogue with our neighbors, our school staff, our students and seniors, and all of the residents will benefit from this project and hopefully learn that we all have more in common than we may think, despite our divergent views. Thank you very much.
Thank you. And we will now go to Gordon Yamate, who is followed by Ann Lamborn.
Good evening. I'm Gordon Yamate. I'm here in my own personal capacity and not on behalf of the DEI Commission, but I'm going to speak about a proposal from the DEI Commission. First of all, this is a community art project that we're proposing. It's very simple. You don't need to be an artist. I've had some interesting discussions with our town manager about making sure that people observe the rules and they just stick to transcribing the Constitution, because some people have taken liberties to do other things with projects like this. But I do think this is a project that will provide an opportunity for community members to interact with others who they may not know, an opportunity to reflect on this country's most important governing document, and the concept of democracy itself, and to ultimately have a hand in producing a collective work that can be displayed in the town chambers or other suitable venue. Just from the standpoint of knowing the concerns of the town, this project will not cost the town anything, and it will be funded and supported through volunteer and community contributions and efforts. This was conceived by the DEI Commission, but it has also been supported and recommended by the town's Arts and Culture Commission and Community Health and Senior Services Commission. The project is timely. We started this almost a year ago. It coincides with the semi-quincentennial or 250th anniversary of this country. I'm hopeful that we can get this going before we miss this great opportunity. And I would just ask if you want me to be available later when this comes up under council matters. I'm happy to stay or be available by Zoom.
Yes, looks like Councilmember Rennie has a question.
Yeah, so staff did write this up a little bit. I don't know if you read the staff report. They're suggesting that they don't have the bandwidth to host or co-lead the project, and they're suggesting that the DEI commissioners participate on their own time, and there be a sort of a third party leading it, but the town could publicize it and provide town facilities for the final product. Is that adequate?
Yes, and that's kind of what I anticipated. The town does very little except maybe announce this on their website with a link to a site that explains the project more fully. It allows you to sign up for this. It goes, provides all the information you need to know to participate in it. I can't think of anything that could be less, consuming of the town's resources.
Okay, thank you.
Councilmember Hudis.
Yeah, thank you. And I think this project could add a lot of value as people really understand the Constitution itself. The question I have is about whether it includes things that I see in the proposal, which is participant reflections, stories, quote, RIGHTING, quote, the Constitution, and interpretations of the Constitution. As you know, there are some very big differences in terms of interpretation in our communities, particularly on the Second Amendment and the 14th Amendment with regard to women's reproduction rights and other things. And so would the product include those written interpretations? It looks to me like in the proposal it says it would.
Well, I didn't intend to have people interpret the Constitution in that sense. This project is really just transcribing the literal language of the Constitution. We will have guidelines for participants, one, that they are respectful of others participating in the Constitution, as well as, quite frankly, the Constitution itself. But I really want to emphasize that there is no interpretive issue with this. I will explain to you, though, that the conceptual art component of this is really what is revealed by the process itself. We're not requiring that participants talk to each other, but the hope is that as they participate in this, people are just going to make comments. They're going to ask questions, and I'm hopeful that that can be a productive discussion and it be one that can be within a controlled environment.
Yeah, Councilmember Hudis.
Also, I wanted to ask whether the proposal includes a requirement that the conceptual art or the transcription be displayed in a public building owned by the town of, owned by the town of Los Gatos.
I've had discussions with Mayor Moore. I know, I'm not sure if you're prepared to commit to a public venue at this point, but our hope is that given the scale of this project, we did think that this particular town chambers would be an ideal place for this, for displaying this. But if it's not available, we're hopeful that there'll be something else that's equally appropriate.
Thank you.
Councilmember Badami.
Thank you, Mr. Yamati, for bringing this forward. I have a couple of concerns because we heard a couple speakers talk about this is great, handwriting the Constitution, and it will involve useful dialogue with students. But you didn't spell it as in handwriting, as if we're handwriting the Constitution. You did it as writing, as if you're trying to write the Constitution, as if something is wrong with the Constitution. So can you explain that for me?
Yes, I'm glad you actually asked for clarification. I know that Councilmember Hootie's alluded to that as well. It's really a play on words. And the writing is not intended to be, a distinction between right-leaning or left-leaning. It's writing the Constitution, putting it back into balance, getting people to sort of understand and quite frankly, understand that this is, the document that binds this country together. And my hope is that, if this document can't sort of bring this community together, its chances of doing that on a nationwide basis are going to be pretty slim. So, does that help?
It does, but I just have one other question, and I appreciate the unifying aspect of it and bringing people together in community. But with what Councilmember Hudis mentioned, with people having different interpretations and different beliefs, for example, the right to bear arms and maybe some other, issues with other amendments, you don't think that that would create divisiveness?
I think there may be people who, as they go through this, they're going to discover things. They're going to ask questions like, I didn't know this was in the Constitution. And someone will comment, or someone will say, what does this mean? And they'll solicit ideas from others there. I do want to keep the conversation to the point where they're not, this isn't politicizing anything. We're not taking political stances on anything. We're respectful of each other's own opinions on this, but we can have that discussion. If you don't have those kind of discussions, I think it just sort of undermined the whole purpose of doing this as a community.
Thank you.
Mayor, could I suggest that any future deliberations on this topic move to item A on the agenda?
Yes, yeah, absolutely. And I just had one last question of the speaker. Just to, at a very high level, can you, just for all of our understanding, can you explain, because I think the Councilmember Badami's question is a good one that I think a lot of folks have had. From my understanding, the writing piece is neither right nor left, and it's also not correcting the Constitution. It is societal writing of our, it's a metaphor of sorts, but it is, my understanding of the project, and please correct me if I'm wrong, is truly as simple as writing the Constitution in a shared space and then displaying it.
Absolutely. We will provide copies of the Constitution. One of the rules of participation is that you're going to transcribe what the Constitution actually is. One of my colleagues from our commission actually has sort of done a test run on this. So you'll have some examples of this, and she'll be able to explain that, I think, a little bit more. But yeah, this is not an opportunity to reinterpret the Constitution, to say what's wrong with the Constitution. It's really an opportunity to understand what this document covers, what it means, how it's interpreted by people, and hopefully enlighten this community.
Great. Thank you very much.
Yes.
Appreciate it. Okay, our next speaker is Ann Lamborn. She'll be followed by Joe Enns.
I'm Ann Lamborn, representing myself, and I handwrote part of the Constitution to test this out. But before I did that, I read the entire Constitution in one sitting, and that was a very, very, very enjoyable activity, and I read it in the library. I'd like to just show you what it looks like.
And please direct your show and tell to the council. And you need the mic, because, but you can lay those on the table if you want. And you can just stay at the podium.
This first side of the foam core took about 15 minutes to write in cursive, and I have not written in cursive recently, and I struggled a little bit. And I did this in a broad chisel pointed marking pen. I suggest a rounded end. And then the second page was written by my neighbor. And it's interesting. Our handwriting isn't really that much different. And I wonder, I'm really curious to see, this is such a great project that I really want to see it done. And it can be done very, very quickly, and it can be attached to the walls here very, very easily with various products. And thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay, we will go to Joe Enns, who will be followed by Gus Hu.
Thank you, Joe Enns, community organizer for Friends of Los Gatos Creek and liaison to the homeless. The homeless are really coming along. I like to, let me talk about the creek. Okay, they're piling up their garbage, and I'm going to have it hauled off. The brunt of these people don't all live in one place, and I'm working with Caltrans to simply have it hauled off. So as long as you can keep that way, I think the town will be happy that the homeless people are not trashing the creek that we all love and need. Thank you, Cassandra Fuqua, for starting that. The only woman real homeless out there that cared, I guess you could say. I think we all care. And the homeless people are getting, I see them getting better. I'm working with these people that are all very highly intelligent. People are starting to be respectful and think, and have a brain and not put the drugs down. And I'm just real proud to have the opportunity to bring these people up, because it's bringing me up too. So thank you very much.
Thank you. And then we'll go to Gus Hu.
Okay, I'm going to try doing some of this. I have a couple topics. I just handed you things. I took a screenshot of Google Maps, and of an off-ramp of 85. It's over by North 40, phase 2, and I actually talked to Mary and brought her out there by thing. But I had video and stuff like that. There's to be backup when you dump a lot of cars there, and I'm trying to push that along and saying, hey, you're asking for when you back it up to the freeway, because the screenshot shows it is backing up already, and I tried to point that out at the Streets and Transportation Commission and showed them a picture. I also showed you, give you a picture of this. There's a flag and the article, and I'm curious of what flag you're flying, because I think that's another issue that the town really, the whole layout, nobody was, you don't tell people ahead of time, and I don't think that represents you were focused. Your council's focused on this when there's like ice ages. A lot of people most people have been doing this for over a year. Some of these people have spoken over a year, brought this up. Let's have this agenda. I say there's a second shooter. I want to use the screen, and some of it's already on the minutes. I believe I can prove that there's a second shooter if somebody would watch the screen. But those are some of the things. Another thing is the DEI. It sounds like a great project. I think that. I wouldn't want to write it all out, but I'd like to, have your own version and everybody sign the peace thing and say, hey, we agree to this, and no wars, let's use our words. and have a debate and type of thing, not to overdo it. But I think you have, I'm not a public speaker, but if you had people that are, 10 minutes or 15 minutes on a topic, I think people can say one way or the other of how people would vote, or do a straw poll. So also water bills, Civil War, I think that we're in, like last time they're moved behind us, so now they have they're a little bit more organized. I don't think you're supposed to put flyers up though, what I heard, but those are a lot of the comments. And then the Brown Act, this is something between, I disagree with that. This is something between the mayor and the vice mayor that you guys don't know about, and it was at a council meeting, a policy meeting, that you guys weren't there.
Thank you. Do we have any speakers on Zoom?
There are no hands raised on Zoom.
Perfect. Then I will close verbal communications and move to item 8 under other business, which is to review and provide input on a comprehensive framework and work plan for the town's multi-year CIP. Christina Alfaro, our Administrative Services Director, and Nicole Burnham, our Public Works Director, will present the staff report. Thank you.
Good evening. We have a presentation for you tonight. I am Nicole Burnham, your Director of Parks and Public Works, and as you noted, Christina Alfaro is with me, Administrative Services Director. This presentation is a bit of a reiteration. I believe I am incapable of controlling a remote. This presentation is a bit of a reiteration of information that was provided to the Finance Commission on March 9th, 2026. So this is, we're providing a preliminary framework and looking for input on the staff approach to our best practices in CIP and the preliminary framework. So we have long identified, I think a number of us, a need for a more robust and comprehensive CIP development and implementation process. So the staff report outlines in detail the Government Finance Officers Association standards that are used as the basis of a CIP process. And it also discussed at some length the asset management system, because the adequacy of the future CIP really is underpinned by asset management. So the CIP, as many of you know, is divided into 3 different programs: streets, parks and trails, and public facilities. The year 1 of the CIP is appropriated. The future years are based on planning estimates for both the cost of projects and the revenue to support the funding of those projects. And current CIP funding is heavily restricted and skewed to the streets program, and spending on facilities and parks are sort of left behind with limited resources. About 88% of the CIP funding that is in the streets program is legally restricted, meaning it's dedicated to either storm drainage funding or paving, or there's some other mechanism that restricts how we can use it. So our biggest program and the majority of its funding is restricted in its use. We, as a town, receive $850,000 annually from the state under the SB1 program that can only be used for paving. In order to continue to receive that $850,000, the town's required to spend $3.7 million annually maintaining and managing our streets. And that can be through capital projects or through operating budgets. But either way, we need to spend that $3.7 million, which is why there are other supporting options, funding sources for paving, including the 2010 and 2016 Measure B programs and the gas tax as well. In the past years, we've also had the benefit of $878,000 from our town's waste hauler in impact fees, and those were intended to support the impact to roadways as a result of heavy trucks. Starting in fiscal year 26-27, we will no longer have that funding source available. I mentioned earlier, other projects such as building improvements, facility maintenance, facility management have no consistent funding sources. Parks and trail enhancements also have no dedicated funding and no consistent revenue stream. So what we're going to talk about tonight is a proposed CIP framework that will provide more complex and more complete multi-year financial planning, project prioritization, life cycle costing, and give us the ability to assess long-term impacts, both for capital planning, but also for the operational impacts that capital projects inevitably create. So this slide is part of what was included in the staff report as Table 2. It is the GFOA framework. There are 10 items in the best practices, so this is 1 through 5. The way this table is set up, and again, this is consistent with the way it is presented in the staff report, the left-hand column is the element of the framework that comes straight from GFOA best practices. That is their recommended best practice. The description column is our best effort, mostly Christina's, at a description and a translation of what GFOA actually means with that framework element, and then we've included an estimated completion time frame for the work to be done. So step 1 is defining a planning horizon. We generally plan for 5-year CIP. We don't expect that would change, so we marked that item complete. Step 2 is needs identification, inventorying our assets, defining the life cycles of those assets. The staff report talks about using not only the life cycle of the assets, but further subcategorizing them into items that might be perpetual assets like roadways and sidewalks, items that need to be repaired or replaced, life cycle assets that we know, every 30 years we need to replace a roof, or new assets that would be new infrastructure that we would build. Things like the Highway 9 Trail Connector would be in that category, which also come with a new operating budget impact to do the future maintenance. So step 2 is sort of starting to identify these needs, identify the assets that we currently have. Step 3, and I do want to say this is not a linear process. We will not be working through this step by step. I think you'll see as I talk through it, some steps will happen in front of others. Step 3 is where we start defining projects more clearly. You'll see us, and we're starting to do this already. We've started over the last couple of years, but starting with feasibility studies, design phases of projects, construction phases, so that we're discretely funding projects phase by phase, so that we can evaluate at each step of the process what the impacts are going to be and continue to refine those potential impacts, both from a construction perspective as well as an operating budget impact. How do we come about those cost estimates? For feasibility study, it's really going to be part of just staff knowing what we need to do or having a concept of what we need to do for the feasibility study. The result of a feasibility study will give us design costs and design estimates, as well as very preliminary construction. And then as we move into design and fund design, as we progress through design, you'll start to see more refinement on construction costs. So it becomes an iterative process where we're defining very broadly at the beginning, but refining the cost estimates as we move forward in the process. As we do construction cost estimating right now, we base that information on unit costs from similar bids, like with our paving project or concrete project. We also have, Caltrans publishes bid tabulation information, so we get their unit costs. So there's a lot of information that goes into that. If we're using consultant design services, they're developing cost estimates for us and using their expertise from projects all over the area. So that's how construction cost estimates are built. We have had some questions about how to manage grants in CIP, which is a topic we'd like to explore more this evening. It's a little bit hard for us to project, and we generally don't assume that we have grant funding if we haven't been awarded the grant. And we don't know which grants are going to be funded, and we don't know where we might see funding from. And an example of this in our current capital budget or program is the Blossom Hill Road overcrossing, we are planning, we're making an assumption that in the future, hopefully we will get grants. And we're thinking, when we're budgeting, we're thinking about the grant match rather than a full, the full $18 million we think we need for construction. But I can't name a grant in the capital budget. I'm not quite sure how to do that. And I think Director Alfaro would say there's some financial implications to naming grants prematurely as well. Step 4, financial impact analysis, where we start looking at long-term operating maintenance, replacement cost implications to help to council make decisions about what to prioritize and how to fund projects, which gets us to step 5, the prioritization framework, which we do as staff. We're always thinking about health and safety, about legal mandates, regulatory requirements, but we have that framework and we work within it, but it hasn't really been socialized. So part of our work in moving to GFOA best practices will be to socialize that prioritization framework. Okay. Slide 6 through step 6 through 10. Step 6 is about building comprehensive funding plans, comparing infrastructure needs with available funding capacity, evaluating long-term sustainability of the program. Step 7 is about policy development and governance and how we work. And we have capital planning policies and budgeting policies. As we do work here, we will refine those and update them and make sure that they meet current best practices. Step 8 is a big part of this, which is working in asset management. So our CIP and forecasting of future information is only going to be as accurate as our asset management system is. PPW has long had an asset management system. It's not fully built out. We use it for work orders. We use it to manage the work we do. But moving it forward, we've already repositioned staff over the last year to really build out a more robust asset management system and take what we were already doing to the next level. And then step 9 is about communicating what we're doing, and step 10 is monitoring and annual updates. Which will also look like include developing things like project management, standard operating procedures, documenting the processes, and also looking at project management software, which is something our engineering team has been doing for a couple of years. And we've been waiting for some of the Tyler implementation, our accounting software implementation, to come through to see how to balance the two needs of project management and the project accounting. So what are we going to do first? This is a big body of work, that is for sure. Like I mentioned earlier, the process isn't linear. We think reasonably steps 5, 7, and 9, so prioritization framework, policies, and communication strategies are achievable in fiscal year 27. As soon as we're done with this budget process, we can start working on those. And then behind that, also starting in this fiscal year, but unlikely to be completed, are steps 2, 8, and 10, which really are about the needs identification, which underpins the asset management system. Because for the asset management system to be good, we need to have defined our assets and identified their life cycles. So those are the things we'll start working toward this year. We have vehicles pretty well built out, the vehicle inventory in the asset management system. We are looking toward building out the Civic Center building asset management system, so getting all the HVAC, all the electrical, roofing systems, all of the systems of this building and into the asset management system, and kind of using that as our sandbox to test the system and see what's working, see how the life cycle analysis is working as we move toward incorporating the rest of the town assets into the system. That's not to say we won't work on other assets this year, but those are the ones we really hope can really get into the weeds on and really refine the analysis of. And this year, we'll also focus on optimizing the reporting and tracking, using existing systems and adding additional software solutions. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Okay, that's the last slide, thank God. So I'm done with that clicker. So tonight we're looking to just get feedback from the council, have a discussion about this. We did bring this forward to Finance Commission at their meeting of March 9th. Their recommendation was that given current staffing levels of the town, the commission recommends that council considering hiring a full-time equivalent or consultant to help with data management and project management for this project and to move forward with purchase of project management software. So we'd like to get feedback on that from you. And then our longer term goal, if you in table 2 notice the schedules we had laid out, we've basically laid out a 5-year plan to complete this conversion to the new GFOA outcome. And with that, I can complete the presentation. Thank you.
Thank you, Director Burnham. Are there any questions at this time for Director Burnham? Okay, I had a quick one, which is just, can you define the concept of socialization for us, for me?
Yes, I can. I just mean getting it to the light of day and talking about it.
And does that mean in the community, to the council, all of the above?
All of the above.
Okay.
I think, yeah. Just talking through it with people so it's in something other than the heads of people in public works.
Okay, so publicizing.
Publicizing,
Yeah, okay.
and communicating.
Great. Okay, great. Then I will open up public comment on this item. We have one comment card from Gus Hu.
Okay, we're in the Silicon Valley. This is about hiring a person or a consultant. I say, do an AI or do algorithms and stuff like that. There's enough people in the valley that are really smart that if you hook up to the right people, you get good information, and you don't. It's about information. It's not about let's draw straws and stuff like that. So put it towards tools. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, I will turn back to the council, and per our new agenda policy, I am looking for a motion to kick off our discussion unless there are questions. Yes, Vice Mayor Isto.
Actually, I do want to ask a question. I was at the Finance Commission meeting where they made the recommendation to either bring on a consultant or somebody full-time. And I guess, what I'm trying to balance is, they seemed happy with the savings we had from a vacancy rate, but now they're telling us to hire somebody. How much will that help move this forward? And is that the biggest place where we need help? I don't know if director or manager want to answer that. Like, how do I understand that recommendation, and what does it mean?
I don't know the cost implication. I don't know the scope. I actually, after I heard from Finance Commission, have set up some meetings with consultants that are in this field that do this work, but I haven't met with them yet. So as I sit here tonight, I can't tell you what that would cost. I'm guessing it's in the hundreds of thousands of dollars to build out a full asset management system, but I would need to get back to you on that. I think it's a question of, I think we can do the work. I think we have the intellectual capacity to do the work. It's about how long we want to spend doing it, because one person or 60% of an FTE, which is essentially what we've allocated, it's going to take some time. But I would encourage us to be thoughtful about how we build out the system, because I think, and so maybe spending a little more staff time up front and holding off on a consultant may not be a bad idea right now. Just to give us some time to kind of build out and be comfortable with what we're doing and get a clearer direction in front of us, if that makes sense. And I don't know if the town manager or finance director want to.
Yeah, because I'm trying to understand, like, what's the critical link, and is this the area, or is it useful to you at this point? Which it sounds like maybe it's too soon, but go with the manager.
Yeah, please to the manager. Yeah.
So the premise of the Finance Commission was being able to properly track projects, their cost, percent completion, and estimates to completion was primary, and then to assist in the overall project management of our capital improvement program. What we wanted to do is first create the framework and get buy-in from the council on utilizing GFOA or Government Finance Officer Association best practice and start to put the pieces together and not necessarily hire a six-figure total compensation employee and just throw them in there before we've figured out exactly what pieces do we want to move forward. The second piece we need to consider is the conversation we had yesterday about our capital improvement program. We are not contributing additional capital into our capital improvement funds. This year, we would have contributed 1.1 million, which is what we've done annually for several years. We're not doing that, and our current balance will not support projects for all 5 years. And so before we throw a significant amount of money towards a role that would be part implementation, part planning, we need to look a little closer internally as to what can we do with existing staff, how is the framework being framed, and how do we want to proceed in the most efficient manner.
That's helpful. Thank you.
Councilmember Hudis.
Thank you. I wanted to put the cost of improving our project management and our asset management, which I think are two different things, in perspective of how much money we're talking about. So early in the presentation, there was a discussion about streets and roads and maintenance and improvements and things like that. How much are the current funds for that?
We
roughly
generally $3.7 million a year in the capital budget is what we've been funding in recent years.
And that amount of money, I think you mentioned 88% was coming from outside entities. Is that correct?
88% is restricted, but that's not only for paving. For the streets program itself includes paving, concrete, but it also includes storm drainage projects, which also are a restricted funding source.
And that's in the 3.7?
No.
Oh, what is the total?
Of the overall streets program, that I would need to check on.
Okay. So, you know, the concern that was raised is the ability to understand the estimate to complete on these projects, because the discussion was that we have a general ledger system that shows what we've budgeted and what we've expended, but we don't have a system that tracks the work that needs to go to complete these projects. Is that correct?
That is correct. I mean, we track it. I mean, we're not tracking it, but we don't have one system that encapsulates all of the information that we would need and that we would want. And that's where the project management system comes in.
Okay. And then if I could follow up on the magnitude of what we're dealing with, the entire streets budget, capital budget, which we don't know the number, but we know it's more than 3.7 for sure. And we say that 88% of that is restricted. And most of that restricted funding is coming from the state and the county, is that correct?
Or our own stormwater impact fee. But yes.
Most of it's coming from the state and the county, or most
or
of
our own stormwater fee.
Which is it?
All of them.
Okay. So for the money that's coming from the state and the county, how do they know how much money we need to spend on streets? How do they know that the amount of money that's being allocated is the right amount of money? And particularly since I believe we're at now an 82 score on our streets, and we've been improving steadily over the last 6 or 8 years to reach that level. So that money is coming, it's restricted, and how do they know how much we should be spending on streets?
I'll cover that question. Try to get these fiscal years correct, but sometime in the past, I believe it was fiscal year 2009, 10, and 11, the state had agencies report how much they had spent on their streets. And the average of those 3 years became the baseline for what they call the maintenance of effort, or the minimum funding that needs to go towards roads to ensure we receive the $800,000 that Director Burnham was speaking about prior to. The rest of a lot of the funding comes also from the gas tax revenues, and those are also restricted in terms of how they can be used. But when it comes to the 3.7 and how they know, they used an average based on 3 fiscal years in the past to come up with that base and then escalate it on an annual basis.
Last question on this. If we're at an 82 score on our streets, and we don't have control over the investment in them, how do we know that we're not going to overspend and overachieve on our streets relative to other significant needs that we have for things like maintaining this building and the building across the street? How do we know that that money is going to the right place?
I'm actually going to let Town Engineer Heap chime in here a little bit about how he plans out the spending and programming of paving dollars, but I'm a little confused by the question, because I think what we're saying is we receive this money and we have no choice but to use it on streets. It cannot be used for building. It is restricted. So I might be a little confused by the question.
Well, I could ask it again. How do we know that we're spending the right amount of money on streets if we're at an 82 score and we have money that's coming in that we have to keep spending? Are we going to reach 100? Is that the right thing? Or can we challenge the definition of what spending on streets is to include sidewalks or other things that are deferred maintenance that are causing other problems in the town, or do we have no ability to do that?
No, we do have ability to do that, and we do move that money around, and some of it does go to sidewalks, and it does go to things like, the trail connector when it can. And again, we also some years spend less so that we can do larger projects. You're going to see us put forward a request to do some work on Santa Cruz, which is going to take a lot of money. But again, I'd love to let Town Engineer Heap weigh in on this.
Thank you. Gary Heap, Town Engineer. There's actually a lot that goes into paving every year. It starts again with the maintenance of effort and that funding that is provided by the council for our paving program, which goes to fund, as Nicole or Director Burnham said, not only our paving program, but our sidewalk program, and doing a lot of the ADA improvements that are required when a paving program is actually done. We do utilize Street Saver, which is an MTC-provided software that helps us understand how to utilize that funding appropriately and to make sure we're getting the biggest bang for the buck, that we're spending this money on the streets that need to be maintained at a higher level, to keep them at a higher level, and then when funding is available, to go ahead and spend that money on streets that do need more substantial amount of work. So there's a lot of things that go into it. Paving is a very flexible and moving target when it comes to how things are actually done. We can set up a given year where we want to fund $3 million worth of paving. We'll design what we feel is $3 million worth of paving, and depending on the bid environment out there, bids may come in at 3.2. Bids may come in at 2.5, and we've seen that over the last several years where we've been getting very good pricing where the numbers have come in somewhat lower, which then allows us to bank some of that money for future years or put that then into other facilities like our sidewalk program, where we can get maybe some additional cutting done or some additional curb ramps installed. So it all has to go to transportation and all has to go to those types of facilities and infrastructure.
Thank you.
Councilman Brownie.
I'll just add a little bit to that. So we know the original gas tax has to be used in those certain areas, and the SB1 money has to be used in those areas. But the Measure B money that came from VTA. Once our PCI is above a certain point, we have more discretion on what direction we could go. And maybe council members Hudis's questions are getting to, we've just been dumping all of that into roads, but there may be a piece from Measure B that we could use for some other things.
Is that a question or is that a statement?
You can tell me I'm full of it, but I don't think so.
I'll choose not to do that. No, that is very true. The number has to be, I think we have to have a PCI, I believe, over 70 or 75 to be able to use it for other projects, but they all have to be transportation related. They all have to be related to the funding source, and in a lot of cases, that's gas tax to use to fund projects that would support those gas type of vehicles or other vehicles of the like.
Great. I wanted to ask about the tiered system we created in the last CIP. I think that's been a big help and big improvement. I think it helps the council sort of collectively better understand what we're actually prioritizing. And I think we've already seen that, in sort of the pre-budget cycle. This time we're already discussing, okay, do we need to move something into tier 1 or tier 2, or how we want to think about that. And I think it's a helpful framework. And so I'm curious, how that fits into what we're talking about here, and then B, and this I think is kind of going to Vice Mayor Risto's question. It seems like we've made some big improvements already since in the last year or so. So what I'm hearing, is a lot of these things we can probably get away with waiting to do some of this until 2027, and that's so we would be okay to not rush it by hiring a consultant. We want to do it right internally. I want to see if two different questions, but.
So yes to the latter, that I think, holding off and letting us give more thought, develop some of these policies and procedures will be helpful, will be really helpful to us. The first question,
tiers,
about the tiers, it has been helpful for us as well as staff. It's definitely helped us focus on which projects to prioritize. I don't know if the tiers will persist next year. I think you can say the 26-27 budget will have the tiers. I'd like to think that eventually we move away from them into just a more strategic, long-range look ahead of what you should expect and what we need. Where the tiers are almost a triage step to help tease apart priorities right now. But I'd like to think that we can quantify priorities more effectively. Then that will help make the tiers are going to create themselves, I think, in the future.
And so can you, I know you're asking for feedback and just, gave a good presentation on this. I don't know that I'm fully seeing the vision. So can you explain the vision a little bit more? And then, I just want to better understand where you want us to get to.
Yeah, I think that's a great question. I think the way I would explain it is like looking at this building where we're in right now. We have a number of improvements that we know need to be done. I can't tell you whether they need to be done next year or 5 years from now or 10 years from now, right now. And then, so mapping that out and giving that look ahead, knowing what the cost of those improvements are going to be in a year, 5 years, 10 years, but then also what are the financial implications of not making the improvements, right? There's an opportunity cost, I guess I would call it, to not taking $2 million and not redoing the HVAC system in this building and putting it toward, something different diverts money that we may need, and we need to be able to tell you that what those trade-offs are. And that's where things like the life cycle analysis come in, like how much longer does this HVAC system actually have before it will completely fail? And how do you, it's a decision-making tool, if that helps. And town manager might like to weigh in, I don't know, but.
Yeah. And so I'm just going to ask, and then I'll let the town manager weigh in. I'm seeing in my head sort of like a year by year sort of like, spreadsheet, I'm sure is far too insophisticated, but sort of a branching spreadsheet where we can see if we're going to have $10 million this year, and so here's the things we're going to spend on this year. If you don't do each of them, here's what happens. Is that okay?
Yep.
Okay.
And then I think it also, from a budgeting tool, you kind of started to see it last year too. We built out for facilities. We had done in 2022. The town had, before I was here, the town had done condition assessments, partial condition assessments for each of its facilities. Each of those documents was living independently, and so we took them all. And they all had recommendations, and they all made recommendations of like, in 26, 27, you should be doing these improvements. 27, 28, these are the ones. We took them all, combined them all into one spreadsheet, total them up, and you're like, oh, okay, every year we should be spending $3 million on buildings just to keep them operating, right?
Which we're not doing.
We're not yet. But we, although we're not far off, actually, in the current, like the last couple of fiscal years, we haven't been far off. We haven't been spending it as much as all of the funding we're given, because I don't think we have enough staff to spend it. That's a different problem. But that tool, having these budgeting tools to really be able to look ahead and know how much money we really need. And I really think, I wasn't here last night at finance, at the joint meeting, but I listened to it this afternoon. I mean, I really feel like that is where we're all trying to get to. I feel like we all agree we need that kind of framework to really be able to effectively budget.
Thank you. To the town man. Oh, okay. Did you want to chime in about the vision?
It's going to be a little bit long, but I'm hitting multiple things if you want to keep going with the council members.
Sure.
So I wanted to ask about our systems. So I understand that there's an asset management system, and that asset management system is not integrated with our financial system. And Tyler has an enterprise asset management system that is integrated with the financial systems. Is there a reason that we're using a standalone asset management system?
Parks and Public Works has had an asset management and work order system since 2002. So, and we have not changed softwares in all of that time. So when Tyler came in, I can't speak to the decision making on which modules were incorporated, because it was done before I was here. I would say, we have been using, it's an OpenGov system. It's very popular. There's a lot of communities that use it. It is a robust system. That doesn't mean it's the only solution. And I don't think it's out of the question that we would think about migration, but we haven't gotten there yet. And I would shudder a little bit at the cost of what that migration might look like. But we haven't investigated it. But we haven't taken it off the table either.
Is there a cost of that system not being integrated with our financial systems? With our financial systems not being able to know about the life cycle of our assets and the spending that we're putting into those assets?
Yeah, I think that's one of the questions we need to answer. So, and that's one of the things staff is teasing apart right now, is what does that look like? How can it integrate? What does that integration look like? Can these systems talk to each other? Can they not? And if they can't, what does that mean? Those are all the things we're evaluating right now.
Thank you.
Yes.
With Rosenberg rules, I'll go ahead and move this along.
Thank you, Councilmember Badami.
Make a motion. I see this as a change to how we look at projects only, with a promise of refinement and a better outcome. So with that, I move to approve the work plan and elements of the capital improvement program with consideration of the recommendations of the Finance Commission and hiring consultant services if needed and recommended by staff at a later date.
Councilmember Hudis?
I'll second the motion. I would ask whether it would also be possible further explore how grants will be evaluated as part of our CIP program, because I don't see very much about that. And when I look at the type of projects that we have, life cycle, perpetual, repair, and new, I think all of the new involve grants, a significant one. So would it be possible to add that to the what we're looking at? I know the GFOA is great, except it's a one-size-fits-all in terms of, you know, governments, and ours is highly dependent on grants.
To the maker, I think, is that
an amendment to my motion, or is that a question of staff?
First, a question of staff. Would it be valuable to put something more in the work plan about how grants will be considered?
I think I'd like to ask you more about that. Can you tell me what your vision is when you say how to incorporate grants into the CIP? Can you tell me what that looks like?
So I'm looking at number 6 of the best practices, and it says multi-year financial strategy, build a comprehensive funding plan, and align financing methods with project timing and maintain overall fiscal health. And also number 7, which defines some of the financial requirements for capital planning. So I guess none of this talks about grants. And so would it be possible to enhance those areas with a consideration of how grant funding is part of, you know, number 6 and number 7?
Yeah, and Director Alfaro and I were talking about this earlier today, that I think as one of our policies, we talked about having one around grants and how grants get used and when they get used, because there are implications to it. For example, I can have a $50 million grant for a capital project, but in order for me to award a $50 million construction contract, I need to have $50 million in the bank, in town money, and then get reimbursed. So there's some implications there that we started talking about that we want to maybe have some policies around and see what that looks like. And I'm not opposed to grants in the in CIP and fleshing that out, because you're right, we do think about them. We think about them more off book, and I'm concerned about putting them kind of quote on book, where I would say, you know, this project is for sure going to be grant funded 80%. In fiscal year 2030, but I'm happy to think about it. I'm not saying no. I'm just saying, like, it gives me pause and makes me want to ask a lot of questions. But we can certainly think about it. Were you going to add something?
The town manager. Go ahead.
So as we look at number 6, the point of it is a comprehensive funding plan. Grants are listed. Pay as you go, which we do heavily now, in addition to grants, is listed. Debt service, which is something that would be needed for the larger dollar amounts, is listed. I think if we overemphasize one, I think it would do a disservice. I think right now, we don't even know what the comprehensive capital listing is that we need to be financing and figuring out how we pay for it. And I'll go back to the conversation we had earlier, and Councilmember Hudis asked, how do we know that this is the most important thing to do, in effect, to continue to contribute to our streets? We don't. Why? Because we don't have enough resources for all our capital. So we're dealing with funding that's restricted, and therefore we're using it for that purpose, and staff is trying to figure out the best way to deploy those assets, and a whole host of other issues that we have that we're just kind of going along until something occurs, whether it be netting that holds lacrosse balls from the park, or a leaky roof in the building, or doors that don't close without a drill in the council chambers. And so when we proposed the framework wasn't requested by the Finance Commission. It was staff that proposed us talking about a framework to start putting the pieces into place to understand what do we need, what do we have, and how do we pay for it. And so right now it's very simple. The money is dwindling, there's less of it, and we're trying to balance what's more important right now. When it comes to our streets, we're in a very good position. Our streets are at a better condition than many communities across California. And because they are, the cost to maintain the linear mile of a street is cheaper than it is to do it in a community that has 70 PCI or 60 PCI, like my last one, which was at about 67 PCI. And there in the communities that have lesser, we were begging to figure out how do we get more resources to improve the quality of our streets to make it cheaper to maintain. And so I think if I had to choose what situation to be in, I would want to be in Los Gatos. If I have money to commit to do something well, the quality of our streets, our largest asset that we own, and one for which every member of our community has a benefit from, would be the better one to be at the higher quality. The problem is we can't figure out how to finance everything else yet until we figure out the plan.
Yes, Councilmember Hughes.
Yeah, I'm going to withdraw any request to modify the motion. But I would also say that when we do get the CIP budget, I hope that we don't take a step backwards from where we've been in terms of understanding how important grants are for anything new here, and that we have enough of a framework for evaluating not only the grants that have been awarded, but be able to have a discussion about the likelihood of the next phase of a grant, because you don't want to only make a decision about essentially sunk costs or sunk resources. You want to be able to look forward and say, okay, is there some probability? And having worked with a number of businesses who have highly uncertain activities in their business plan, there's always then a need for a discussion about the probability. And I think grants are probably the thing that needs most discussion about before we commit to a phase of a project where we already have funding. So, so no change.
Great. I wanted to ask about the categories. So are those categories, I don't recall, are those new that we're sort of conceptualizing for the future work plan? I don't remember reading in the staff report where those came from. The life cycle, perpetual, repair, and new categories. Can you speak to those a little bit?
I can start. I'm actually going to let the town manager or Christina chime in too, because they sort of pontificated on it, and we started thinking about it and thinking that it does make a lot of sense. I think there's things I want to tease apart between life cycle and repair, replace, rebuild, but I do think it makes a lot of sense to think about perpetual assets as being those assets that we know we are always forever going to have to own and maintain, like sidewalks and roads, and they might want one bucket of funding, right, or one category of funding or priority of funding. Life cycle assets we talked about earlier that need, that need routine replacement. We know every 30 years we need a roof. We know every 15 we might need HVAC. And I think that they help. I think that when it comes to both planning, but also the maintenance and how we put money into these assets, do we want to take care of these perpetual assets? Do we address the life cycle assets where we know we can, hopefully the idea is we're planning for life cycle assets. And then periodically we're going to have these things we need to repair or rebuild. And then we talk about new things that come with a whole different, that are new and are going to require, they're great and they're wonderful to have and communities need them, but they come with a different impact to the operating budget, right? I mean, if we're repairing or rebuilding something we already have, it's kind of status quo, but when we talk about new things, it comes with a different way of thinking about it. And so in my head, that's sort of how I thought, laying them out that way, again, might help with council decision-making and prioritization.
Yeah, I think some version of that framework is very helpful. I don't know if this is the exact right way to do it, but I think, again, this I think have been a discussion that's been ongoing, sort of the push-pull between this building needs, frankly, millions of dollars of investment, as do other assets in the town of Los Gatos. Though at the same time, there are a variety of things that we hear, the community come in asking for. And so I think being able to sort of couch those and have a good concept, because I think one of the things I'm sort of hearing underlying all of this is that we're perhaps not prioritizing in the way we might do if we had all of the information, right? If we knew exactly when things were going to go down, or when we were going to have more money than a different year, we might be able to prioritize a little bit better. We don't have that right now, and so when the community comes in and says we really want a public restroom, then this year it's time for a public restroom, right? Which I think is what's going to have to work for this budget cycle. But I think that's a good way to think about. We want to set aside X amount of money for new things because we recognize that that's always going to be a demand, but that's perhaps less, there needs to be less money in that pot than perpetual and life cycle and other things. So, yeah.
No, if I may interject
the grand
here.
vision, yes.
When we look at the categories, this is something that I pushed heavily for to conceptualize the thought process. And the CIP has an integration with the operating budget. And so here's what happens. We're going along in our operating budget where we pay more than 60% of our budget for people, the fully loaded cost of people, including their pensions and the liabilities. And then we have a pretty static amount of operating expense money. And here's a $250,000 expense for the HVAC that goes out at the library that we didn't anticipate, or we didn't realize it's at its end of life and we're just going along maintaining it until it breaks. In that year where that occurs in an unplanned manner, that $250,000 has an impact in our operational decision making. And so the CIP program, and when we conceptualize this as this HVAC as a life cycle asset where I could buy it and then look to the future and know 25 years from now it's its manufactured service life, and I could calculate its future replacement and know what do I need to set aside so when I get there, it won't have an impact on the operating budget, smooths out our ability to be predictable on the operating side and have the comfort of knowing for that life cycle asset, it's addressed. And so when we then look at life cycle, the ones that we can have an end date that we'd have to replace and plan for, the perpetual for things that are forever that really don't have necessarily a hard and fast end date, or the thing that most communities don't plan on, the repair, replace, rebuild, like the end of life of this building, which is a massive expenditure, or something new, which is what most of the time the city council and the community desires is. They're not looking at, hey, do we have a good enough HVAC in the library? They're looking at, what new thing do I want? The community center, which is in one of our plans, the bathroom, which has been in our CIP for a number of years. And so it's easy to forget and neglect the earlier categories for the benefit of the latter. And I think there needs to be a balance across all four of those. And so what we're trying to get to, we're at, when you look at the 10 items, the categories, we're at the 1 or 2 trying to identify needs assessment. And so what we're trying to do is on the life cycle assets, whether it's equipment, vehicles, technology, or facilities related, is identify what they are, where are we at, how far behind are we, and what do we need to do to get back up to speed. And some of that may entail debt and additional revenue because we're so far behind. And then to overlay on those plans the rest of these categories to try to figure out what do we come with to council to help you make decisions. Because if the HVAC needs to be replaced because it hits 25 years, but it's being maintained properly, and there's no real reason to get rid of it, we don't have to replace it. We can continue contributing and know when it's ready to go, we have the funding. Right now, aside for how you feel or how I or staff feels, we really don't have an objective way to say what's more important than the other. So when you see the CIP that comes forth, one of the reasons why we came to council on February 10 to ask, let's have a general discussion, is so that we can get in the minds of the 5 council members and the public to say, these are things we would like you to consider. Now that's on the table, and now we can proceed with the same kind of process internally and figure out, with this limited amount of money, where do we put it? So when I proposed the generator at the yard, which is something that we would be proposing, I'm doing it from the perspective of when something goes wrong, who is the town going to point the finger at? It's going to be the town manager. Well, why didn't you replace the generator that led to the fueling yard not being available, that led to the police cars not being fueled during a disaster, that then led us not having police in the community? And so I'm weighing all that in the absence of this comprehensive plan.
Thank you. Yep, Vice Mayor Risto and then Councilmember Hudis.
Thank you. I mean, I think it's all been said, but for me as a council person, this is so helpful because, you know, this is my 6th year on the council, and in the past, having the CIP come up, it's kind of, yeah, we have the public coming up saying, I want this new thing, or council members want something. And then you look at the list of unfunded, like ADA work and other things, and it's so vast compared to what our budget is. It's overwhelming. And how do you pick one thing off of there when you don't know? And, you know, I don't think it should be any elected group or single person's decision. We need all of the robust information to understand this is what we have to do to keep the town running. And when we understand how to maintain what we've already got and what our future needs are going to be, and then if and when we choose new things, not only understanding what the cost of the new thing is, but now we add that to the perpetual maintenance, right? And so how does that load on there? So it will certainly make us feel like a much more informed body as we make decisions when we're asked about prioritization, when that makes sense. There's going to be other things that we really can't prioritize because we have to do certain things. And so it'll be much easier. I like the comment that you made, Director Burnham, about, you know, when this is all in place, it'll sort of sort itself out, or it'll, you know, we won't need the tiers because it'll sort of generate it for us. And I just really appreciate this really robust, deep thought about our capital assets and how we fund it and how we make these decisions responsibly. So I'm excited.
Councilmember Hudis.
Yeah, just comment in support of the motion and the direction. You know, having observed this process, you know, now for my 6th year, I really don't think we've had such a problem in terms of prioritizing. I think the council has used good judgment. I think our Parks and Public Works has done an excellent job of estimating projects and bringing that to us and providing a framework. The piece that's missing in my mind is the putting the money aside to take care of them. And that's been a fairly random process that happens with whatever's left over. And that's the part of this process that I'm most excited about, is that us having a way to actually put money aside for things that we know and think are going to happen. So I'm very enthusiastic about this.
Other comments, other questions? Okay. Are we all clear on the motion? Then I will call the question. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? None. Passes unanimously. Thank you very much for the robust presentation and the thought that went into that. Thank you. Okay, we have just council matters, but there is an item. Do we want to do a bathroom break real quick, or do we want to go through? All right, we will continue on. Okay. So on council matters, we have one request from the mayor, me, to discuss placing the DEI Commission recommendation on a future agenda item for action. And so I'll just give a quick intro on this, which is per the town council's agenda policy. I wanted to agendize the attached recommendation from the DEI Commission for the town council to consider endorsing the Handwriting the Constitution project. In short, as the speakers alluded to, this project is a series of participatory art events in which members of the community gather at various venues around Los Gatos and take turns transcribing the entire U.S. Constitution by hand. And again, to confirm, from my understanding of the project, there's no interpreting, it's transcribing. The only role of the town of Los Gatos would be to endorse the merits of the project and then provide space to display the project. I think this is an excellent community building activity and I think will be non-controversial. So that's what I wanted to say. Councilmember Rennie.
So it's not completely clear, but I think we could just give direction to move ahead with staff recommendation and not have to drag this through another agenda item. I mean, staff tells us, they're able to support it through publicization and a place to display the final product. The DEI Commission would be doing it on their own time, and some third party would lead it. I'm okay with that. If you want that, I guess we need a motion, I'll make a motion that we go with basically that staff recommendation.
Great. Is there a second? Vice Mayor Risto.
I will robustly second that.
Great. Councilmember Hudis.
So I'm very much in favor of the idea and the council taking this up of transcribing verbatim and doing that. But I've heard very conflicting information about whether interpretation is included in that, including in the staff report. And so I do think that if there is interpretation, then we're entering a whole different area of political speech and whether that political speech should be displayed in the council chambers or in other town areas. And so I kept checking myself to say, is interpretation included or not? And I heard both, and I see both in the staff report. And so I would, if this is going to go forward, I would want to really understand whether interpretation is included in this recommendation and whether interpretation is something that is political speech that town assets should be used to put that forward, or would it be better served in the museum or in some other place in town?
Councilmember Rennie, then Vice Mayor Risto.
So I would be willing to modify my motion to include the final product be checked and that it is a true transcription and not an interpretation. And if it's an interpretation, it not be displayed.
Okay, Vice Mayor Risto.
Yeah, I agree. My expectation is that it's basically going to be the Constitution, handwritten in a whole bunch of different handwriting. I can't think of anything more exciting than to see our Constitution in a variety of different writing, printing styles, sort of pulling everybody together. I would just soften it. I'm assuming it's just going to be a verbatim transcription. So maybe the motion should just be that as this project goes forward, it will be exactly the Constitution, as opposed to deciding whether it's...
That's fine. I just think there needs to be a little bit, before staff blindly puts it up, they should check it, basically.
Okay. Right. Okay, I'll second that.
Councilmember Badami.
I still have concerns over the title or the spelling of handwriting the Constitution. If it's just simply transcribing it, and by the way, that looks beautiful, that Ann displayed on the table, why are we not spelling it the right way? Because using a metaphor can have different meanings, and it sends the message that there's something wrong with the Constitution, and that might come out during the transcripts and the conversations that people might have at a later date. And if we display this in the chamber, we're almost endorsing and teaching the message to maybe kids and young adults that there is something wrong with the Constitution that needs to be righted.
To the town manager.
If I may, because I think this is the first item that's come forward since the council approved its revision to the agenda setting policy. So really the only action that's before you, if you were to act, is to agendize, since this was brought by an individual or minority of the council. However, let me ask this, not this hypothetical. If the motion before you was to agendize this to endorse a verbatim transcription of the Constitution and to post it at some public place, and that was, if that was for the motion before, the sense I get is the council would unanimously be in alignment with agendizing that conversation at the next meeting. And so if there's not an opposition, because I can see where the council is. You may not need to take a motion. I can administratively just proceed with a verbatim, endorsing a verbatim, unless there's an opposition by the council and you want to agendize this for conversation. We can just proceed with a verbatim transcription that we can check before we put that publicly, and without the council acting, or you can act to agendize it to do the action at the council level at the next meeting.
I would be comfortable with the town manager administratively taking this on per the direction of the council, if there's no pushback. Yes,
I would still need to understand if the project is called handwriting and if we're going to endorse it in any way as handwriting.
The item, I know there's some confusion in how it was written in it. I flagged that also, and so I had the chance to have a conversation with the proponent and from the DEI Commission. It is intended to be a verbatim transcription of the Constitution, and where the interpretive part was intended to be in the exercise surrounding the writing, where multiple people are writing together. It was intended to foster the conversation that would lead to, one, an understanding of the Constitution, two, the thoughts related to it. It was not intended to revise the Constitution as written in the document.
Okay, so if it was displayed by us in the town chambers, would it be titled, the actual artwork be titled the rewriting or handwriting of the Constitution?
I would, if I'm doing it administratively, it would be handwriting spelled correctly of the Constitution, or in some fashion that's very straightforward and unambiguous.
All right, I'm looking at Mr. Yamati, and I'm not sure that he would be okay with that.
I can to the town attorney, can I open up public comment to have Mr. Yamate?
Yes.
Okay, please.
So you have to remember this is a community art project, and artists don't necessarily think literally all the time. So this was just to be putting something in there to kind of catch people's eye, make them think about this, and then make them actually kind of curious about, well, what is this? And when they read the rules, they're going to sit there and say, I'm just going to transcribe this literally? But yes, that's what it is. And you know, honestly, it's just artistic license. It's just, this is how artists do things. There's no hidden agenda. Let me put it that way.
Mm-hmm. Do you have a question for the speaker? Yeah.
Just thank you for the clarification. I'm not an artist, so thank you for that. And again, this looks really beautiful on the table, but I just don't want the caption to be in the town chamber. But I will trust the town manager that it would be spelled correctly if it's displayed in here. But I like the project. I think it's great. But again, I'm worried about the interpretation and the metaphor that's used.
Okay. It sounds like we have consensus then.
Yeah, if the council is not opposed to my direction, in which case you can agendize it to discuss it at the next meeting, I will proceed with the intent behind the concept of being an opportunity for community members to come together to write verbatim the Constitution as it's published, and to consider a location for which that can be displayed in a public venue to be determined.
Great. It looks like the assistant town manager has a comment.
Thank you so much, Katie Nomura, Assistant Town Manager. The one last thing I just want to clarify, just so that it has been said, that when we say endorse, we mean, it could be endorsed by Los Gatos town of Los Gatos, or something of that nature, but the host and the responsibility would all be a third party. So just for everyone's clarity, I think you all understand this, but just for the public as well, that would be the distinction.
Correct. Okay. Then sounds like no vote is necessary, and I will move to yes, to the town clerk.
There is a motion with
and
a second
okay.
on the
Do you
floor.
want to withdraw?
I'll withdraw my motion.
Great. Thank you. Okay, then I will move past this aspect of council matters and turn to council members, and I'll begin with Councilmember Badami.
Thank you, Mayor. I have two items. On March 7th, I attended the Los Gatos Monte Sereno Police Foundation Ball, along with I can't even talk. Along with other council members, the mayor, the vice mayor was there. And I also, on March 14th, participated in the Little League opening day ceremony, which was also attended by the vice mayor, and quite a fun event. I've done it, I think, for the past 5 years. I've been a council member, and it's quite exciting. That's all I have.
Vice Mayor Risto.
Thank you. I'll try to get through this quickly. On the 5th, I attended the Silicon Valley Clean Energy Administration and Finance Committee, where we made recommendations to the Board of Directors. And then I alternate for Councilmember Rennie. I was at the Silicon Valley Clean Energy Board of Directors meeting where we approved a $6 million addition to the popular home rebate program. There's a whole variety of things we did, but I think we don't have a big audience here. I also attended the police ball. Oh, on the 8th, I was one of 3 judges for the American Legion Oratorial Contest, and quite germane to tonight's discussion, the theme was the American Constitution. And so there were the finalists from the 6 surrounding counties, Santa Clara, San Francisco, Alameda, all around. And these high school students first had a prepared, like 9-minute speech without notes, without props, without anything, to give the speech on a certain section of their choice on the U.S. Constitution. And then in the second part, there were, I think, 4 or 5 different options of what could have been chosen, and someone in the audience chose, I think it was Article 5, Section 2. And so one of the things that was interesting, besides the fact that these high school students are absolutely amazing speakers and, did a great job with their knowledge of the Constitution and what the issues are around it, the 3 of us judges received copies of the Constitution. And, you think you know it, but then when you're reading it and you're reading the section that student is speaking on, it really brings it to life. And as a side, I'm really excited to come and work on this project because I think it will spark some really good discussion and kind of bring the Constitution to life. Also, a member of the public made a comment that our Constitution hasn't changed in 250 years. It certainly has. There's amendments that have come along the way, and it grows and changes and flexes with us. And I think that's why it stood the test of time. On the 11th, I had a tour of El Camino, Los Gatos Hospital. I think all council members are getting that. I've been there. I've been in and out of the emergency room with kids, with other things. It's really great when you get an entire tour of the hospital and get to see the operating rooms, the ICU, the labs, the cancer center, a top to bottom tour. We really have a very amazing community hospital in Los Gatos, and it's great to see how it's grown and taking care of our community. On the 12th, as vice chair, I was on the VTA Policy Advisory Committee, where primarily we discussed SB 63, which will be coming forward as a transportation sales tax. This upcoming election, it's multi-county, so there was a discussion of what it could mean for Santa Clara, what would be important. And then that evening, I attended the Cities Association meeting where one of our priorities for this year is privacy and automatic license plate readers. And the presentation, actually, there were 2 presenters, the Assistant Sheriff Adam Oberdorfer and our police chief, Damie Field, who just described what license plate readers are, how they work, what the guidelines are, what DOJ has to say about it. And, the representatives from all 15 cities were quite interested. Good Q&A. Our town manager was also in attendance. And then, also in the past couple of weeks, I've met with a number of residents about the West Valley Muslim Association CUP. Sometimes as individuals, sometimes in a group. And that's it.
Thank you. Councilmember Hudes.
Yeah, thank you. Just a few things. Participated in the Finance Commission meeting on March 9th. And I participated in some Los Gatos Thrives meetings on something new that isn't so much community center, but some other things they're doing on aging in place, on spaces for mental health and behavioral health, and some other areas that they're pursuing. And then I met with neighbors of the West Valley Muslim Association, and then I also met with leaders of the association, and then I observed some of the traffic that occurred on Sunday night. So, and I know that item is meant to come to the Planning Commission shortly, but and we've received quite a bit of correspondence about that issue. I assume that correspondence will all be made public when the Planning Commission packet comes out, and so this is really sort of a question for staff. Is that due to come out on the 20th of this week of March?
I think Friday's the 19th, and I think the packets usually come out on the Friday before the meeting, 19th.
Okay, I think it's the 20th. Thank you.
So the 20th.
Okay, I also attended the Police Foundation. One night last week, I also observed the Ramadan traffic exiting at 10:30. As a member of the Silicon Valley Clean Energy Board, I got to do a tour of the Diablo Canyon Nuclear Power Plant. They're giving lots of tours right now because it's finished its first 20-year mandate, and they're looking to extend it. Currently, I think they're talking about 5 years, but it's been certified safe to run for another 20 years. So people are getting tours of that, or elected officials are getting tours. I also met with Tom Picrow to get an update on the Thrives Foundation, and that's it.
Thank you. I also observed the traffic at the WVMA at the mosque. I spoke to the Los Gatos Interact Club, the high school version of the Rotary Club, and then later that week spoke to the Rotary Club, so that was a nice tie-in. I welcomed some Cal Poly alumni to Testarossa Winery for their alumni mixer, and was happy to attend that. I caught the first pitch from the Los Gatos Cupertino Saratoga fast pitch softball opening day and shared a few words. And Willow, the 4-year-old who threw the opening pitch, was very merciful with me. And she it was a great pitch, but she did throw it right at the ground, which was perfect for me because then I didn't have to actually catch it. I also attended Los Gatos Police Officers Ball. I attended the Civic Well Policymakers Conference, and this morning I spoke at Compass Realty, and then spoke at the Campo de Bacci St. Patrick's Day celebration, and then finally I hosted my community coffees and a happy hour, and on Sunday, March 29th, I will be tabling at the Los Gatos Farmers Market. I'll turn it over to the town manager and town attorney.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The council's mostly highlighted the items I wanted to speak to, but I want to reiterate the police officers' ball. It's incredible to come to a community where we have a foundation and community members that come together and generate tens of thousands of dollars to contribute to the police department. And the items that they're funding, for the most part, are items that we would have to pay for out of our general operating budget. And the other aspect of what they do is pay for things that are new technology or things that we test out, where it's somewhat hard at times for us to contribute our limited fund for things that could be potentially not something that work out, but they contribute to that, and the things that do make it to the end are things that we then stick into our operating budget. So it's remarkable to have that, and it was nice to see the city council of Monte Sereno and the manager of Monte Sereno attend that event. Also, a true partnership between us and Monte Sereno and our two communities, and we should be proud for that. Lastly, I received a formal personal invitation by the Consul General of Greece out of San Francisco to invite me to an event, which is the Greek Independence in San Francisco on March 25th, next Wednesday. And I'm honored to be the only Greek city manager in California and be able to represent the town of Los Gatos at that event. With that, I'll turn it back to you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Congratulations. How exciting. Any updates from the town attorney?
I just wanted to report that the council met in closed session earlier tonight to discuss the disposition of 4 Tate and discuss real estate negotiations. The Vice Mayor Bristow was recused due to living in proximity to 4 Tate, and there's no reportable action.
Great. Thank you. Okay, with that, this meeting is adjourned.